Hey, how's it going, everyone? It is Drago, and we're back into Spooktober. And for this Spooktober, I decided that we're going to be doing Nightmare on Elm Street for the ranking this year. Last year, I went through and ranked the Friday the 13th movies, and that was actually the first time I really watched any horror movies. So this year, we've really gone up in the world. And since Freddy was technically part of the rankings last year with Freddy vs. Jason in the Friday the 13th rankings, I thought it's only fitting that Freddy gets his ranking this year. Before I even get into the ranking at all, I will say I really enjoyed all these movies. Compared to Friday last year, the first few on the bottom of my tier list, I really didn't enjoy all that well. I really had a rough time going through them. Pretty much all of these movies, I was pretty darn entertained. Like, there's parts I don't like of, most, but for the most part, I really enjoyed all these. So I'm going to start off at the worst of my ranking and then go all the way to my best. And at number 9, I have Wes Craven's New Nightmare. For me, I was very hyped to watch this one because I heard, this is the precursor to Scream. There's so many cool ideas in this one. It's meta with people in movies showing up and kind of behind the scenes stuff within this movie. And that stuff I did like. I did like the behind the scenes stuff of movies and just kind of people having to be forced to play a character. Gosh dang, man, I did not like that kid actor in that movie. I think it was from the kill count. James said, he had poopy face all the time, and gosh dang, that kid did. I haven't seen too many movies to where I'm oh, this kid's performance really drags down this whole movie for me. I mean, yeah, you have bad kid actors, but they're kids, but gosh dang, that kid just annoyed the crap out of me when I'm watching that movie. That I really actually enjoyed the Freddy parts and the Heather parts and the Robert Englund kind of meta cameos in it. I enjoyed all of that a lot, but just anytime that kid showed up, it just really dragged it down for me. Going on to number 8, I have Nightmare 6, or Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. Pretty much only in that movie, one character really annoyed me, and it was the girl that's boxing and stuff with her kind of rough attitude. She was the only one that kind of annoyed me, but otherwise, I will say the few problems I have is just when they're in the nightmare sequences and stuff, they never really, you had people sleepwalk and stuff in previous ones, but you never had people walking up invisible stairs, or in the case of the video game kill in that movie, being turned into a literal cartoon for everyone else in the real world. I will say initially some of these kills, that video game kill, I really enjoyed it when he gets sucked into the TV and it's got all these fun colors and stuff all over the screen. It got pretty darn silly pretty darn fast, and also most of the rules that were established in previous movies just did not care about in this movie. Yeah, you had Freddy get souls and stuff from people when he killed them, but they never had their body physically disappear in the real world. For the most part, the kills in this movie made up for the kind of rule breaking and stuff, because they were mostly pretty fun. A few of them, again, that video game kill, the beginning part I really enjoyed, but the ending part got a little bit too cartoonish for me. Going on to number 7, I have the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. I think if this one would have did stuff a little bit more different, for example, the Friday reboot and just some of the other reboots that happened around that time, instead of just keeping it so much OG Nightmare on Elm Street, because I think you had fun ideas in there of the micro nap thing and potentially Freddy being innocent, but they just all led to directions that really didn't go anywhere, because I think that could be a very interesting movie if he was innocent the whole time and this is just a revenge plot because he got killed because he was an innocent guy. I mean, obviously, as you went on with the Nightmare movies, they got a lot more silly, so this one they took it a lot more serious. I think for me, the tone got a tad bit too serious, and I would have liked a little bit more comedy fun in there a little bit. I don't particularly mind the Freddy in this movie. I like the weird little finger thing he does with twitching the claw. I think the most of the cast outside of Freddy was just too plain. You get the one girl killed in the exact same way that she was in the first movie, on the bed. But like, to be honest, I thought she was like Heather's character, or Nancy's character throughout like the beginning part of the movie. Honestly, for me, I know they had like different hair colors, like one was blonde and one had black hair, but for me, for like half of the movie, I thought it was the same character, just because their acting was almost the same, of like just kind of like dull and like not really having much character to them. Going on to number 6, I have A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. The main reason why I didn't have this movie a lot higher was, for one, obviously you killed off all the people from part 3. You did all the part 3 characters dirty, man. Like, they died immediately. The main character is Alice in this movie, and I don't think she was particularly the greatest in this movie. I actually liked her a lot more in part 5, but I didn't really like her in this movie because she seemed so like not having any idea what's going on, and honestly just seemed kind of void of everything to me. I don't know, she just seemed so plain, when the characters you killed off in the previous ones at least had dimensions to them. But even with that, I still think the Freddy stuff, very fun. Going on to number 5, I have A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Which, going through all of these, like, this one's like the really different one, because at least Freddy acts kind of normally to the one main character guy, but pretty much for everyone else, he's just, taking over this guy when he's sleeping and using him to kill people in the real world, so they don't even have to entirely be asleep. Which is so weird when you watch these in order, because you go from like the first where he's in dreams, and then the second night he's like possessing a dude, and then he's all of a sudden like in the real world now, and then you go back to the third, and then like he's acting like he did in the first movie. This is almost just such a different Freddy movie, just because the rules are so different within it. And also just how Freddy took over this dude and actually like came out of him at one point. Going on to number 4, I have A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child. Which, like I said about Nightmare 4, I didn't really like Alice in that movie, but I actually quite liked her a lot more in this movie, because she at least felt more realized, and like she already knew what was going on with this Freddy thing. Now, I will say you definitely have weird aspects in this movie, aka like the whole kid subplot and like her being pregnant and whatnot. But I just think the reason why I enjoyed this a lot more, and I know this is like where you get into territory of like, oh, these got bad now, the way that Freddy was acting in this movie, and just like some of the inventive kills and stuff. And I just think it was also a little bit because Alice was actually a little bit better in this movie, because pretty much all the nightmare sequences I had quite a bit of fun with. Like, the one that sticks out to me is the like guy driving on the motorcycle, and like Freddy becomes like the motorcycle and like takes over the parts of this dude's body. Going on to number 3, I have A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors. Which I think if you just had this as a 3-part trilogy, like that would have been a perfect ending to things. Because you brought back the OGs, you added a few new characters that were pretty darn likable, you added some very inventive stuff with Freddy. It actually would have been a very good trilogy if you just kept it at that. Now, I will say, for at least Nancy in this movie, she went out in such a bummer way. You could have given her such a cool death, but that was kind of a bummer way for her to go out. But at least you got to come back in New Nightmare. I think what put this a lot higher for me is just like that supporting group of characters. I like the little doctor dude that she was partnered with. I don't remember his name. So going on to number 2, and this is my number 2 on the Friday rankings, I think, is Freddy vs. Jason. And I did rewatch it again, and I still really enjoy this movie. I think the main girl and most of the human characters are pretty darn dumb. And I think that is the one drawback of this movie, but gosh dang, that Freddy and Jason stuff, oof, yes, I really like it. Because just their fight, it's so good. It's such a good fight between those two. I think a lot of it is definitely over the top, but I just think because it's so ridiculous is why I really enjoy it, and I still had a lot of fun rewatching it this time. It is a little bit sad that this is the last time that Robert Englund got to play Freddy, but I think he did a pretty fun job, and at least he got to fight Jason as his final outing. And going on to my number one spot, and that goes to A Nightmare on Elm Street. I will say, after my Friday rankings and stuff, like, I was enjoying the horror movie stuff. Since then, I've seen a few of the Halloweens. I saw the OG Scream and the newest Scream and just a few miscellaneous other horror movies. And I've enjoyed them, but for me, I felt like it was almost lacking a quality in each of these movies for me to really enjoy it. And I think Nightmare on Elm Street did that for me. Like, this movie just clicked with me to where I'm like, oh crap, this is a movie. And I can't really describe what was missing from all these other ones I watched. This was the first one to where I'm like, oh, this is more than just like a horror movie. Like, this is actually a legit good movie. And even now, I still can't really put my finger on what really clicked with me. I liked a lot of elements in this that they didn't really use in sequel Nightmare movies. Quite like in the dream sequences and stuff, you get Freddy kind of like doing little whispers and making little sounds in the background. And also, he's like super sadistic in this movie, aka like chopping off pieces of his fingers and like, taking off the face to have the skeleton underneath. And I think that was just an element that they left behind for the sequels and stuff, and it would have been cool if they did a little bit more of that. In Nancy's friend group as a whole, I was quite invested in all of them. At least I somewhat cared about each of them, so that was kind of a good element to have. So what's your guys' ranking of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies? Leave it in the comments below. I'm going to continue Spooktober I'm going to rewatch all the Friday the 13th movies, and I will give an updated ranking 1 year later to see how my tastes have changed. Otherwise, happy Spooktober to all of you, and this is Drago signing out.